Hello everyone, so I will be doing a book haul. I got quite a few books, but I didn't get them all at once. I've been collecting these for a couple of months now, so let's get started. I got 4 true crime books, and they are The Night Stalker by Philip Carlo. This is about serial killer Richard Ramirez. The second book is Green River, Red Running by Ann Rule. This is about Gary Ridgway, also known as the Green River Killer. He's a serial killer in the 80s who was located in Seattle. The next true crime book is The Manson Women and Me by Nikki Meredith. This is about Leslie Van Houten and Patricia Krenwinkel, who were a part of Charles Manson's cult. And the last true crime book I got was Portrait of a Killer, Jack the Ripper, Case Closed by Patricia Cornwall. This book is about Jack the Ripper, who was a serial killer in London in the 1800s. I got 2 non-fiction books, and they are The Witches, Salem, 1692 by Stacy Schiff. This is about the Salem witch trials, and a couple of years ago I went to Salem for Halloween, and I just found everything so interesting and everything that went down there, so I picked this up because I want to know more. The next nonfiction book I got is The Romanovs, 1613 to 1918 by Simon Sebag Montefiore. I'm so sorry, I know I am butchering that. This is about the Romanov family. I really don't know much about the Romanov family. I've heard bits and pieces about the Romanov family, like Anastasia, but I don't know how much of it is true, and so I really want to learn more about them. I got 2 horror books. The first one is Penny Dreadfuls. This is a collection of 20 horror books about vampires, from werewolves. This book sounds really great. It has authors from Louise May Alcott, Bram Stoker, Edgar Allan Poe. So I'm really interested to read these little short stories of horror books. The next horror book I got was Sleeping Beauties by Stephen King and Owen King. This is about in a future where when women go to sleep, they end up in this cocoon gauze, and while in this gauze, if they are awakened, they become violent. And there's this one woman, Evie Black, who is immune to this sleeping disease, so they really want to know why she is not affected. I got 2 espionage books. The first one is Red Sparrow by Jason Matthews. I don't know much about this book other than it's set in Russia, and I don't think I've ever read an espionage book, and this just sounds intriguing from what I do know about it. The next espionage book I got is Killing Eve by Luke Jennings. So this is about an assassin who is a psychopath and someone who is trying to track her down and capture her. And it is a series, and I've seen a couple of episodes of that series and I loved it, so I want to give the book a try. The next books are mixed between mystery, thriller, fantasy, historical fiction. The Girls by Emma Cline. This is like a historical fiction thriller novel about Evie Boyd, who meets these girls in the park and she becomes fascinated with them and their free spiritness, and soon she gets drawn into a cult, which soon to be the Charles Manson cult. And I'm just very interested in Charles Manson and his cult, and so I think this will be interesting. The Terror by Dan Simmons. This is a historical fiction novel. This is set in the 1800s about men on a steam-powered vessel, and it's just about them surviving in the Arctic Circle. So it's about them rationing food and trying to survive the cold, but then something terrifying and more sinister is after them. I heard great things about this, and so when I saw it on sale, I decided why not. Bewitched of Willow Hall by Hester Fox. This is a historical fiction fantasy novel about a family who suffered like a scandal, and so they're forced out of their homes and they go to Willow Hall. And soon one of the sisters finds out that she has these powers. And this is set in the 1800s. The next book is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This is a historical fiction fantasy novel about two magicians in the 1800s. So one becomes a celebrity when he showed his powers, and soon another person comes in, Jonathan Strange, who becomes his student, and soon they become rivals. And I've heard great things about this book. It is quite big, so I don't know when I'm going to be able to read it, but I found it at a used bookstore for $3 and I just had to pick it up. Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. This is a contemporary mystery novel about three women who live in the same area and they have completely different lives, but something brings them together. Again, I really don't know much about this, but I heard that the show was great, and so I want to read it before I watch it. The Couple Next Door by Sherry LaPena. This is a mystery thriller novel about this couple who seems to have the perfect life. They seem like they have the perfect relationship and they have a beautiful baby, and one day they go to a party next door and something terrible happens and they all begin to turn on this couple and believe they are responsible. The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. This is a historical fiction mystery novel, and in Vermont in the 1950s there is this boarding school and they think it's haunted and one of the girls goes missing and it is closed down. Then in 2014, an anonymous benefactor wants to restore this boarding school. And this writer, Fiona, wants to write all about it because 20 years earlier, her sister's body was found near that boarding school. And so she just wants to kind of get closure on this place. Neverworld Wake by Marisha Pessl. This is about Beatrice, who is very popular in school, and then her boyfriend ends up dead. And a year later after they graduate, all her friends meet up again and she is determined to find out what really happened to her boyfriend because she feels that there is more to the story and that they know something. I haven't heard much about this, but I did like Night Film by Marissa Pessl, so I'm gonna see if I like her other books. The Rules of Magic by Alice Hoffman. This is a fantasy novel and it's the prequel to Practical Magic and it's set in the 60s. I didn't think Practical Magic was bad and I want to know more about the Owen's life. Awake by Natasha Preston. This is a mystery novel. This is about Scarlett, who doesn't really remember anything before the age of 4. But then she is in a car accident and she starts to remember pieces of her past. A past that her parents try so hard to keep from her. I've read The Cellar by this author and that's kind of one of my guilty pleasures. It isn't the best written book, but I really liked the story, and when I saw this book for $3, I had to get it because I knew I wouldn't want to buy this for full price because it is a guilty pleasure and I'm not sure if I'm going to like it because they aren't really written the best. All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda. This is a mystery book about Nicolette, who left home 10 years ago and never went back. Her best friend went missing and was never heard from again. And her father's sick, so she needs to go home to see him. And while she's there, another girl goes missing, and it is really similar to when her best friend went missing. And so now she is trying to figure out what happened to these missing girls. I've never heard of this author, but it sounded good, and I am always looking for a good mystery thriller novel. The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. This is a mystery thriller novel about Harriet, who inherits a fortune from her grandmother, but she knows that it is delivered to the wrong person since her grandparents have been dead for years. But she is really down on her luck and the bills are piling up, so she goes to inherit money. And while she's there, she finds out that something is very, very strange about the situation. I really want to like Ruth Ware books. I've heard great things about them, but I've read 2 already and they were just okay. There was just something missing from each one. And if I don't like this book, then I'm just going to have to give up on Ruth Ware and just say she's not for me. But I found this for cheap, and so I'm going to give her one last chance. The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. This is a mystery thriller novel. This is about Emma, who when she was younger, she went to this camp and all the girls in her cabin snuck out but her, and they were never seen again. Now she is a rising artist living in New York City, and the wealthy owner of the camp she used to go to sees her paintings and offers her a job to be the painting instructor at this camp. And she sees this as the perfect opportunity to find out what really happened to her friends at the camp. I own The Final Girls, who was also written by Riley Sager. I haven't read it, but it's been on my TBR forever. I'm hoping to get around to it and then get to read this book. So those are all the books I bought recently. Like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Bye!